Hey fellow astronauts, it's me, Mario. Let's hope that today's video isn't plagued by the issues that I got in previous videos about the mic and about the lagging and stuttering thing. Today we're talking again about Shackleton Base, again, a game I'm in love with, that I am analyzing in depth, and I'm trying still to understand and to properly frame. So, we start our discussion about all the corporations with moon mining. Moon mining is probably the first corporation you're gonna encounter in your game since it's listed number 1 on the setup for your first game. So I believe it's quite important to start discussing about it since it's probably one of the easiest corporations to understand, but still one of the, in my opinion at least, funniest to play out since it does already have some bit of combos that you will learn with other corporation too. It's distilled in an easy to understand package. So first off, I'll start the discussion of every corporation by saying it out loud what it does. So this corporation will let players spend rare earth and helium-3, which is an isotope of the helium gas that you will find on a crater. That's the main resource. You can spend these two resources in different combinations to gain bonuses. Some of these bonuses are pretty easy to understand. 2 victory points, 2 steps on the reputation track, 2 victory points, 3 coins, etc. 2 of them are the most powerful ones and are what you're aiming at least in the early game for most of the time, which is 2 rare earth and 1 helium-3 to get a card for free. Not a moon mining card, you can take any card on offer. This is a very powerful effect that's not very frequent in Shackleton Base. Actually, I think this is probably the cheapest kind of conversion you can get for a free card. So be happy with it, and most of the time players will just try to fight a bit for it or compete for it. And the other one is 2 helium-3 and 1 rare earth for both a free panel and a free dome. In my opinion, this is a bit less powerful than this one just because acquiring a card early on isn't as easy. It's not that easy to place down domes too, but actually you just need 1 iron and 1 rare earth. So this looks like it's a bit more expensive. The cool thing, of course, is that as with every corporation action, it's just normally something tackled on another action or something you can take 3 of a time. So basically if you buy a card you can also do it, or if you do this action you can do up to 3 corporation actions. So it's pretty cool to be able to get this kind of conversion. So this is what the corporation does mainly. I will briefly talk about the main resource, helium-3, which is as basic as it gets. Its value is 1, you acquire it when you activate the token, and by its value is 1 I mean that it does have the same value as an iron or a steel. I don't remember if it was iron or steel, and 1 rare earth. So it's the same value, which converts into 3 coins most of the time, and it's the basic value for Shackleton Base. So you can treat it as a value 1 when you're doing math and try to see if a move is strong and efficient or not. Alright, let's talk briefly instead about the milestone. The fun fact about moon mining is that it's probably the most linear corporation as far as the corp action goes. You simply take a crate, spend the resources and place it on. Of course the crates can run out. In 4 players you have 10, 8 in 3 players, and I don't know in 2 because I haven't played much, but I would guess 6. So it can be cutthroat in the later stages of the game where the crates run off. but it's pretty easy, right? It's a linear thing. You spend resources, you get an effect. The milestones are a bit different to get to the first one, because they are not linear, like they are not acquire 1, 2, or 3 things of the same thing. They actually have to do with something different, each one of them. So the first one requires to have a lab in a hex where there's a helium-3 resource token on one of the edges. The level 2 requires a player to have 2 workshops in 2 different hexes, of course, with 2 different helium-3. So you cannot just say, let's do it with the basic one. You cannot just do this easy thing and call it off. No. You need another helium-3 on the other hex you want to count for this milestone. So it's a bit more complicated than the first one, but the first one is actually pretty easy, I think. Most players should get it. This one actually requires some effort. Not in all games you're gonna build 2 workshops, and needing them in some exact locations, it's not an easy feat most of the time. And the third one is just completely different, and it requires a player to acquire 3 different cards of moon mining. This is actually one that I very like. I like going for early cards with moon mining. We'll see why in a bit. There are a lot of these that are very powerful right off the bat, in my opinion. And this one, of course, requires quite a lot of effort. Like 3 cards, they can also become quite expensive early on if players go for helium-3 early on. So you need to be prepared for it, but it's also not something that pigeonhole you into something, because as we're going to see, not all the moon mining cards have to do only with what moon mining wants you to do. So it's cool. It's a cool milestone. I think that in most games, 2 players should go for it. My experience has been that in pretty much every 4P game where moon mining is in, 2 players are going to reach the 3rd milestone, because the cards are just that good, and almost all of the cards can run out. There are some exceptions, because some of these cards are a bit, I wouldn't say sketchy. They don't feel as good as other ones, but I would say that most of the time 2 players are gonna go for it, and if not all the cards taken, like only 1 or 2 are going to be left. So let's talk about the cards. First off, almost every corporation has some kind of ways to give you energy. Has a card that rewards you to when you go and build. And some corporations have a sub-theme of helping you getting cards of other corporations, as mining does. And some of them has some general cards. Most of them, I would say, most, it's wrong, of course. All of them have a lot of cards that go strongly with the main theme. I do think that out of the 9 cards in moon mining, having 5 working only with the main theme is not that much. It's actually probably a bit below average, but that's something that I like. It means that moon mining is a faction that can work well with a lot of game plans. So it doesn't require too much out of you unless you want to specialize. Let's just take a quick look at all the cards, and as you might see, all of these cards have an immediate bonus. This is already pretty great, because in the early game you actually, there are some build around cards that don't give you anything immediately that are very strong, but most of the time on the first or on the second round, but mainly on the first round, you want something immediate out of your big investment of 4 coins and the energy spent. So most of moon mining cards give you something back immediately. No, all of them. And most of it should be useful right off the bat. So let's talk about this mini package here. This one will give you 1 point per each helium-3 you spend on a corp action. This one will give you 2 coins when you take a corp action on moon mining and you use at least 1 rare earth. They work slightly differently in that this one would activate twice on this one, while this card will activate only once over here. And this one does the same with points. If you can secure these 2 cards, you have a very strong base for a moon mining centered kind of strategy. Like every time that you deliver a rare earth, you're gonna get 2 coins and 2 points. That's actually bonkers. You really want to hammer that 3 corp action spot and try to cobble up enough resources to work with it. The cool thing is, of course, they all get you the resource you need when you buy the card, which is pretty strong. This one actually should go over here, but it doesn't because Helium 3 is a corp only resource. These 2 cards work in the same way. This one says that once per turn, when you gain a rare earth, you may spend 2 to get a rare earth. This is already making some value because a rare earth is worth 3 coins most of the time, and also rare earth might be very, very strong in some games. Like in this game, for example, I chose it on purpose. You have another outlet to spend rare earth on, so it's pretty cool that you have a source for rare earth. This is why I took this card over here instead of placing it along with the other cards that are working only with the corp. This card is just that good. Take it and enjoy it. It's going to be pretty good. I remember that it triggers off itself, so you can immediately gain 2 rare earth when you purchase it, which is pretty cool. You just need 2 extra coins. This one does the same, but giving you Helium 3 makes it so that it's a bit narrower in scope, in that you use Helium 3 only over here, basically. But it gives you 1 more point, which is nothing to sneeze at, so keep that in mind. And the last one has probably the strongest early game bonus, which is 2 steps on the reputation track. The ability itself is not great early on, actually. Once per round, you can put a crate, when you're doing a corp action, you can put a crate on a place where there's already a crate. This is actually quite powerful in the late game, because it means that you don't have a rush to secure one of these objectives, or you can just go for some that are not contested and leave the ones that are contested last, because you know that you can fill them. It's a weird card. I think it's one of the least powerful out of the package, but it can be pretty powerful if 2 players are going really full on moon mining, which is again often the case when you're playing 4P games with moon mining. I would say that that's pretty much it for the main package and for this card. Now we're gonna talk a bit about some of the common theme that go through the whole card pool shared of the different corps, which is 1 card that helps you build. This is, in my opinion, unfortunately, one of the worst ones. It says that you can spend Helium 3 as was iron when you're building structures on the main crater. It's worth a lot of points, which is good, but most of these cards that help you build from other corps are very, very powerful at the start of the game, because they let you build with discounts. Here, Helium 3 is exactly the same value as an iron. So it is true that it combos for like this card, for example. And in some games you might have a lot of Helium 3 but not much iron. But in my opinion, the reverse is most of the time true. And I end up spending like once or maybe twice the Helium 3 instead of the iron in the whole game, because I really want to spend the Helium 3 here. Oh, one thing to note about this card that gives you more Helium 3 is that it's pretty cool that you can gain the money back easily, because the Helium 3 is the one that gives you money when you spend it on this board, while the rare earth gives you steps on the reputation track. So this one is normally easy and pays off itself and is worth quite a bit of points. This one, of course, is cool because it will let you build immediately when you're buying the card, so you're getting the points on top of getting the build action, and you get the build action when you're doing something else. So it's not, I mean, in the game there are a few cards that I don't think are very powerful, that I think that are quite weak actually. This one is not one of the weak cards, but it's not one of my favorite ones. It's not a card I would try to build my game around. It's cool in the late game because it's worth 4 points and it will let you build immediately, but in the early game it's not amazing, so don't be fooled by it. And then we have the classic and usual cards that will help you with getting energy. So whenever you acquire a card, you can spend a helium 3 to gain 3 energy. Remember that you can do it before buying the card or after, as far as I understood actually. I should probably ask the designers about it, but that's how I think it works. Most of the time you're gonna use it before buying the card anyway, to reach the proper threshold to be able to buy a card. Let's say that there's like 2 energy and you really want to buy a card, you can spend a helium 3, get a hopping 3 steps on the reputation track, and now you have a threshold to be able to play a card, which is pretty cool. So this card is alright. It's also worth 5 points and it comes with the helium 3, which thanks to this ability means that you're basically, that's not true, but most of the time you can take 2 or 3 steps on the reputation track thanks to this card alone. So this means that this card most of the time is worth for you 7-8 points, which makes it a late game beast. But in some games you might want to acquire it earlier, just because in some games players will build a lot and place a lot of tokens on the board, and all the cards will suck out energy from the game, so you will need a way to be able to get energy whenever you please. So this card has its uses. I don't like it as much as other ones, but again, it can be very useful in a pinch, and it's a very good card in the late game for point conversion. This one is a bit odd, but I love it. This one is 3 points with basically 2 extra points, but better because it's 2 steps on the reputation track. This is definitely an early game card, and it goes a bit against the theme of all the other cards. The cool thing about all the other cards of the Moon Mining Corp is that they count towards this objective, because they, most of them at least, feed into each other. They help each other and they help you achieve what the corporation wants you to do. So they go pretty well if you want to reach this one. This one works the other way around, because you really want to acquire it first and then you want to invest into other corporation. It works amazingly well when there are corporations that are incredibly strong, like 2 Mars, which in my opinion is the stronger corp in the game. More on it later. It's not a big deal if the balance is a bit different from one corp to another, but this is very strong. So if you start with this card and then you you actively choose to go for another corp, this is very, very cool. In a game, you normally count to get between 4 and 6, 7 cards. You can sometimes go higher. Very rarely you go lower than that, which means that this one can give you a grand total of 8, 14 reputation, which is basically all you need to reach the top, and that is pretty cool. It's an effect that is very, very, very strong. The only thing that goes against it is that you have to sacrifice, of course, there's always an opportunity cost. You have to sacrifice early game potential to get this one out, and this one doesn't give you anything economy wise early on. It's actually something that happens often is that you buy one card only in the first round and you acquire the other cards later on. So this one might be a bit of a late bloomer, but when it blooms, it's pretty cool. So keep that in mind. My usual plan with this card is getting it and then trying to get down these stupid tokens, so that getting the other cards is difficult for the other players, so I make for them difficult to reach this milestone, while I'm focusing on other corps, and I'm using this one to just compete a bit on this part of the board, along with the rare earth. So I would say that that's it. I'm just about cards. I'm just gonna talk real quick, because I think the video is already pretty long for a one corp only video. I'm gonna talk real quick about the overall effect of this faction in the game. In my opinion, the effect is twofold. On one part, you're going to see a bit more cards purchased. This one is getting activated once per round in every single game that I've played. I've never seen or witnessed a game in which on one round this slot was not used, just because it's that powerful. So on average you will see more players getting more cards, which is pretty fun in my opinion, because it makes the game a bit more asymmetric overall. The other big effect, of course, is that you have a way to dump the rare earth for value, which is very cool, but something you have to be mindful really at the beginning of the game. So when moon mining is in the game, you know that it's going to be a bit more difficult to get many panels on the board, just because it's normally better to spend the rare earth over here along with combos if possible, or on this lot, instead of building panels. Of course, there's this one which helps with getting down panels, but overall my feeling is that you'll see less panels placed down. And the other thing to keep in mind is that here you spend rare earth, so when there's another corp like Skywatch that requires rare earth, it can be a bit tricky to properly balance the overall amount of resources you're gonna get. Keep in mind also that having a way to dump rare earth into makes it so that building labs and the headquarter a bit more difficult. This corp also makes it so that mining appropriately, it's moon mining after all, mining the main crater for resources is on average better if you can get 2 rare earth in one activation. There are not that many columns which will let you do that. I won't spend too much time showing you all of them, but basically you really have to keep in mind that being able to activate 2 positions where there's a rare earth is normally very effective when moon mining is in the game. So what I normally see is that hexes with the rare earth gets the helium 3 on one side, just because it goes well with the overall build your own line or wedge to gain resource out of. I would say that that's it. I've already said a lot of things about this corporation. This corp is one of the few where if you're alone to really focus hard onto it, it might actually carry your whole game. So I think it's very possible to have a game with moon mining where you get the 3rd milestone, you get the 1st or 2nd one on another corp, and you might even ignore the 3rd one in some games. It's not something that happens often. Most of the time you really want to hit the milestone in all 3 corps, but moon mining is strong enough and gives you enough out of your resources that you might actually be able to really focus hard on it while ignoring a part of another corp. Alright, I would say that that's it. So, see you next time on the moon. Bye bye. Mario's out. See you next time.